You are watching, listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our platforms. I'm Mike Morales here in the San Gabriel Valley of Southern California. That young man out there is
Jim Johnston in the Mahoning Valley of Youngstown, Ohio.
just steps from the casino. Be there now. Happy 2021, Jim. Jeez,
Yeah, we made it.
We made it. I'm glad they figured out the vaccine. We've all been inoculated. Nobody's dying. That's good. I'm sorry, folks. We're actually filming this in the middle of November. Okay, so we're still quarantined in place. It's right before Thanksgiving. We ain't going anywhere. All right.
Yeah.
But this is no big deal for us because we're still drinking tequila together, side by side, as you can see, because that's how our screens are. And we are going to dissect Mico tequila. If you didn't watch the Blanco version of this, then we're not going to spoil too many things for you, but we will give you a backstory on this. As you can see, I've enjoyed a little bit of mine. I've had mine for a couple of weeks. The family, the Singe family, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, they were really nice enough to deliver this to our porch here in Southern Cal. And this is the Reposado version. So I'm going to use my Estazo Jarrito. As usual, we're going to drink the stuff, taste it, and then we'll give you all the stats and stories behind it later on. I'm going to pour mine on. My Jarrito is the one that I use for mezcal. I prefer that one as well. I got to go back and forth. Depends on whether I can get my other spare Jarrito.
Right.
It's still in a box somewhere from my move from Texas.
When we do three, I always have to make sure I have to in the middle. I do go Glencairn so I can space those out appropriately.
Exactly. Yeah. and I've got if it's more than three, then I've got to pull out. I have a Glencairn that I use usually for the añejos. This one's really pale. I don't know if you folks can see this on our screens, but it's a pale,
kind of a light straw.
Yeah, exactly. Almost looks like a whiskey, right?
It's even light for a whiskey. I mean, this would fall in, for me, if I were tasting a whiskey that had this color, it would be a Scotch.
Okay.
It would be a Scotch whiskey because I think the char on a bourbon barrel would take this a little darker than what it is here.
I still, if you've watched this with the Blanco version, if you're looking at the string of pearls, very uniform. And these are a little bit more the uniform. It's like I'm looking at the
little cascade effect.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at the Rockettes. They're all in.
They really are. Wow,
isn't that beautiful? That's just visually beautiful, and we're geeking out, but there's beauty in the way. You can tell by the way it's distilled. I mean, some of the Jim and I have had añejos and extra añejos that by their character are going to cling to the glass, and then it looks very oily.
This one's syrupy almost.
Yeah, this one does not. This one, again, we'll give you the information after we taste it, but it's visually beautiful, even though the colors, like you said, it's more Scotch than whiskey. You're right, absolutely. And there's probably a reason for that too, and I'll get into that when we go into the backstory. But what do we? Oh, whoa! Did you smell that? Have you smelled it yet?
Oh,
wow! Holy cow!
That baked agave you were talking about on the Blanco?
Yeah.
This has been baked. This has got baking spice now on top of it.
Right.
And the floral has gone away, and the sweetness is now that whole baking effect is going all the way across the nose here. It's a baked sugar, baked spice smell now.
And you know what else I'm getting? And I know, to be honest, you folks may have seen my bottle has been opened. I'm getting a little bit of alcohol, which we did not get in the Blanco. Are you getting any alcohol?
I'm getting just a touch, right in the center of it.
Right where it needs to be, though. I mean, that's okay. It's all right to have that. Some mezcals may have it more, so where it burns your nose hairs or something. But
Right.
this is very characteristic. It should be there. It's part of the aroma profile. I love this smell, man. That was
This
almost
is
like
really nice. And again, all of that kind of fresh floral, fresh citrus has now been baked down to a caramelized version on this. This is
so it's more like an orange, so we're getting more orange than lime and lemon, maybe, or
more orange and more of a that floral and the sweetness is now that sugar has caramelized a little bit. There is cooked notes to that sugar, that sweetness.
wow, that is some beautiful stuff. But that was instant. It just came right up to you to greet you. It wasn't like sneaky or anything. It just says hi,
Right. Right. It's
Wow. I am getting more of that orange. It's like an orange blossom or an orange. What's the Eric? I did a tasting with Eric Zandona, and he used like a jam, like an orange, like a marmalade. Yeah, and I don't particularly care for marmalade.
You know what? You're right. This has got a kind of a jammy sort of orange preserve smell to it.
Yeah, there it is. That's really interesting that I picked that out because I don't.
Well, and again, I think it's because that sugar, the not sugar, because the Blanco did not have a sugar nose on it. It had a floral sweetness, where this is now less of the blossom, more of the fruit, and the sweetness is cooked like a marmalade has to get, to make your preserves.
Yeah,
this sugar is broken down. The sweetness has got more depth on this nose.
What do they call that? A reduction? It's been reduced.
It's a reduction. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a mixologist either, but Jim has more background and so does Alex for that matter. In those terms, I don't have the descriptors for that, but I do. Yeah, it's really
That's a great nose though.
Yeah, it is very pleasant. This is one that you really want to spend some time with because you keep pulling stuff out and
that alcohol isn't so much that you can't get a deep whiff of this. There's really a lot there that you can take a big gulp of air through there and pick up a lot of very nice stuff.
It's almost as if the alcohol, and I've heard this before from other master distillers, the alcohol needs to be there because in and of itself, it presents the rest of it almost like brings it out, whatever other characteristics are there in the tequila. Unlike some other spirits where the alcohol kind of gets in the way, or it's unpleasant for some people because it's too aggressive.
This is not aggressive with the alcohol. It's there. But it's kind of delivering that that sweetness.
It's got. I'll tell you what. It's almost. Oh, I know what this is. Well, let's taste it first. Let's
all right.
Let's go in and dive in. Oh wow. It's sweeter than I thought it would be.
That's like a spoonful of jam.
Wow.
That is that is just the sweet is pleasantly sweet. It's not
it's not cloying
saccharine sweetness in any way.
Yeah.
This is pleasantly sweet. It's followed immediately by spiciness, baking spice.
Yeah. Barrel spice, like sometimes even a cinnamon, like a touch of cinnamon in there.
Right. This is a croissant with orange marmalade on it.
Oh, look at him!
This has got a pastry kind of baked dough with spice on it, flavor right behind that sweetness. Wow. It makes it taste like it's a pastry. It's a tart.
So there is your food pairing, folks, right there. You got a croissant. That's oh my God. And it, not that this is buttery. I wouldn't say that there's any
It's not buttery.
No, it's not buttery. It's not there because croissants in and of themselves will have that if they're they're normally, swiped with butter and things like that, or baked in. This doesn't have the butteriness that you get maybe sometimes in some añejos. But you're right. This is the flavor. This is like an unbuttered croissant. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's
I don't
something
even know
where
if
you
that's even
got
possible.
a baked cook. There is a little hint right between the sweetness on the front of my palate and that burst of baked spice, where you just get a little bit of that floral has become almost like just. I don't want to say dough. That's not a good way to put it, but it's like a delivery of that alcohol that's coming through, kind of delivering that punch of spice. And it's, if you've ever had a really good apple pie or a really good, you taste the dough, but you get the apple, the sweet apple, the spice, all of that in there. And the dough is a delivery method for that.
Yeah.
The alcohol in this is delivering that hit of sweet and then that baking spice. And it is just really, really nice. I mean, it is bright, it is pleasant, but that spice hits you. And what was a pepper for me with the Blanco is now a cinnamon anise.
Oh, wow. So the complexity that we got with the Blanco continues with the Reposado, but it's even enhanced. There's even more layers of the complexity. And I'll be honest with you, where I said the Blanco would really stand up to a good tequila soda, it'd be a great. I don't even know if I would want to mix this. You could, but there's more complexity going on in here that we get in some of the añejos and extra añejos. This one almost has an extra añejo light.
This sips like a whiskey would, in that the complexity. You need an ice cube maybe in this to just open up that little bit of flavor on the back end, but I don't really see anything that I would mix this with.
Yeah, I don't either. I would food pair it, like you said. That was a beautiful food pairing right there. I think it's more food forward than cocktail. Not that this isn't mixable. I mean, you can mix every tequila with a cocktail.
Yeah, I would maybe do a splash of soda just to give this a little bit of effervescence to open up that flavor, and I mean a splash, and that's it. Or a small ice cube, but it's just very bright. It's very vibrant, and it is just a delicious front to back.
Yeah, this is a real, just again, very well balanced. And let me give you the backstory on this. This is an 80 proof tequila. It comes from NOM 1107, which you might remember. It's El Viejito. We have several brands that come out of there right now. Of course, El Viejito. We have Mico. Tromba apparently has coming out of there as well. It's Karma tequila, one of my favorites, comes out of there. And the people who have their tequilas made at this distillery swear by this distillery. The backstory is the gentleman who started this, AJ Singe, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and his son are co-founders of Mico. Turns out AJ is a former executive at Patron when Martin Crowley still owned it. In other words, he was the co-founder with John Paul DeJoria. So he was there, during the front line at the ground level of this brand. So he kind of, both he and his son grew up in the business, in the alcohol business, and in its heyday. So I call him like a tequila madman. There's a few of those guys out there, and I've interviewed a couple of them, and they have these wonderful stories. I really want to reach out to this family directly. His brother, one of the other sons, was the one that was nice enough to deliver this tequila to me on my porch. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you get into our reposados and añejos, and I'm reading this from an article, this is how I found this family and I found the brand, because I'd never heard of it before. There's a quote here when it says, when you get into our reposados and our añejos, typically when you age tequilas, you use American oak, Singe says. But what we did, we're aging first in American oak, that's whiskey casks and bourbon casks. So it's one and or the other.
Right.
That means Kentucky bourbon or Tennessee whiskey. Those are two separate things, okay, folks? And then, as an experiment, we're like let's finish these off in Cabernet casks. I don't know if there's any other tequila out there that's being finished in Cabernet casks like we are. And there are a few other brands that are finishing and polishing their tequilas in wine barrels. It's become the neatest, the hottest thing to do now, to add an extra layer of complexity. And I don't know, Jim, you're the wine guy too. I'm not too much into, if it's not a California White Zin, I don't know what I'm talking about. I got
friends don't let friends drink White Zinfandel.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really a lot more into the agave spirits because that's just what I've done for 20 some odd years. So not that I don't have enough experience to pull stuff out, but in and of itself, Cabernets, I know that I've had añejo tequilas aged in barrels from Napa Valley, and they tend to be dry. I'm not, well, even with bourbon, we'll get some dryness. Whiskey, right, not so much. But so is there any? Do you think that what we're tasting, as far as the orange, the jam, the marmalade, is that due to the wine barrels that we're getting? Is maybe what we're getting is grape and not orange?
Well, and I got to tell you, there are a couple of cabs now that are being made that are bourbon barrel aged cabs, mm-hmm, that nose very similar to this. Mm-hmm. They have a little bit of grape sweetness and tannic tang on the nose, and a little bit of bourbon corn sweetness and bourbon char spice. And it noses very much like this. Taste-wise, though, this is a bourbon drinker's tequila.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's more. I think I got more bourbon from it than Cabernet, but it'll take me a while. I'd actually have to do a side by side with a cab, or spend an evening with a Cabernet to be able to.
I think the cab barrel probably tempered a little bit of the sweetness on this that came from the bourbon barrels. So the char and the sweetness off the bourbon barrels got tempered a little by the cab barrel. Nose wise, it matches up like those bourbon barrel aged cabs that I've had the last couple of months, and taste wise, this has got the complexity of a really nice low rye bill, mash bill bourbon. This has got a corn sweetness that is not saccharine, that has been mellowed, and the spice is in there like a good whiskey. And I would say, if you like bourbon, this is a great tequila to sip neat.
And again, don't be alarmed by the color. It's a pale straw, so it's going to look like a Scotch. Bourbon drinkers will love it. The fact that it's got a Cabernet polish finish barrel to it,
it's got a lot happening here, and you can smell it and taste it. There is, I'm sitting here and nosing this more and just picking up a little bit more of that. Now that the alcohol has subsided a little, I'm getting that kind of tannic grape complement on the sweetness that makes me. It just smells nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of aromas, and it's full of aromatics that I wouldn't honestly. First of all, here, let me do this. Make it official. It's a brand.
Absolutely do that.
Brand of Promise nominee in the Reposado category. Ooh. But I would hesitate to put this in a cocktail, and I think Jim nailed it. One of those
really would. I really would. I would say this though, and I'm going to throw this out there just because of the flavor profile and the aroma. If you were going to make a Manhattan out of tequila, this is what you'd use.
Wow, look at that.
Get some dark, good bourbon-soaked cherries and a very nice vermouth, and make a tequila Manhattan out of this, and you're going to get a lot of that bourbon character and complexity and the muted char-barreled sweetness that comes with bourbon in this tequila. I think that would stand up. Now, that being said, sip this neat, please, because there's so much to taste and smell with this glass as it develops and the air gets to it.
It's outstanding. It used to be years ago. It used to be that, and I talked to this with many of our TJs. It used to be Reposados were an afterthought. You know, it was let's just put it out there as a middle of the road, and just age it enough to round the edges off the Blanco. And
Right.
traditionally, that's a repo. But now, you know, with the as the category has increased, we've seen the return of some. There was one year where the Reposados are really making a statement, and I think this is one of those. You know, the trend has continued. This Reposado makes a statement. It's not an afterthought just to fill up the line. There's some really good barrel management going on, and just to quickly iterate, this they have a female, a woman, a master distiller. Her name is Karina. Let me get her name really quickly here. Karina Rojo. She is the female master distiller, the woman master distiller, lady master distiller. I want to give it a proper name, give her a proper title. Anyway, she is responsible for these flavor profiles. She's a mad genius, man. We talk about G4 and Felipe Camarena. This is like she's evil.
This Cabernet barrel. The more that this gets some air in it, and the more I sip it, it takes all that spice that we're used to and all that pepper, and just it doesn't mute it. It just turns the volume down on it a touch, so that the whole thing. And again, it's got that balance we talked about in the Blanco.
Right.
This is just such a nice. Every part of the journey here, from the front to the back of the palate, is vibrant and complex, but not overwhelming, and it's nice. And yeah, mad genius. That's a good way to put it.
She's the master mad genius there at Mico Tequila. Anyway, folks, that's our take on Mico Tequila. Mico Tequila Reposado. You have been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Yes, we're on Twitter. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, make it turn gray. Hit the notification bell so every time we upload a video with Jim on it, you guys get notified. And you know, I'm here in Southern California. That gentleman out there is
Jim Johnston in Youngstown, Ohio.
And whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.